The boundless wrath, the titanic jealousy, the eternal avarice, the deadly apathy, the ravenous desire, the boundless veracity, and the blazing arrogance. Who stands at the summit of these 7 deadly sins, and at the same time, who sits at the base of the group of the mightiest holy knights to ever roam Britannia? Find out now. Before we hop into this ranking of the 7 deadly sins from weakest to strongest, please drop your own list in the comment section down below, leave a like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Now, let's get into it. What's up guys, Zago the Pencil here, and yes, here we are, finally. I've completed all the respect videos and it's finally time to rank the 7 deadly sins from weakest to strongest. However, there is specific criteria for this listing of weakest to strongest. We shall be taking each of the characters at their respective canonical peaks. What does this mean? It means each character will be at their strongest state and taken for their highest transformation. The reason I'm doing this is because characters like Eskenor, Diane, and Meliodas, who all have varying levels of power depending on what state they're in, are here. And to be fair to them, we're just going to be assuming everyone is at max power when we're talking about this ranking of weakest to strongest. That's why, for reference, the sins we shall be ranking are True Magic Meliodas with Lost Vein, Droll's Dance Mother Creation Diane with Gideon, Kurchu's Post-Purgatory Bon with no immortality, a Multi-Spirit Spear Full Wings King, End of Series Post-Memories Harlot Gother, End of Series Post-Infinity Merlin with Alden, and the one ultimate Eskenor without Rita. Eskenor will not have Rita taken into consideration since the weapon was shattered and he never wielded it in his strongest state. This leads to the next major rule of the list. There will be no hypotheticals. Reasonably, Diane should be able to Droll's Dance forever until she's stronger than the Demon King, Chaos, and everyone else. However, that didn't happen, so it won't be taken into consideration. Meliodas could go Endura and shatter the verse over his entire knee, but that's another hypothetical, so will not be taken into account. Same case applies with characters like Immortal Bond with Kurchu's, a combination that would have been interesting but we never got, or an endlessly infinite enhanced Merlin, who would be extremely powerful but we never got to see it. I will be going from what the series has given us specifically, so every single strongest state at their strongest level with no hypotheticals taken in. Then, the final rule I have is that they shall be ranked on power and who is more likely to beat who in a fight. 6 can very likely beat 7, 5 can likely beat 6, so on and so forth. That's all, so let's start off with the weakest sin. Gother is an extremely powerful character within the world of 7 deadly sins. However, he falls to the lowest spot amongst his fellow knights. This mainly comes from his lack of raw power in comparison to the rest of his fellow sins, and his over-reliance on his hacks, landing. Gother's invasion is extremely powerful, but every single sin above him has a way to counteract it, or simply too fast to be hit by something like that. And some characters, such as Eskenor and Meliodas, even have resistance to his kind of mental manipulation. So overall, Gother just doesn't have anything to support that. He lacks the physical feats to show that his attacks are potent enough to really compare to his fellow 7 deadly sins. Gother never damages the Prime Demon King. He doesn't even damage the Demon King that has taken over Britannia and is using that as his vessel. His attacks that were used in that fight were specifically meant to invade and just shut down the Demon King rather than actually do damage to him and do serious work against him. Gother does not really have a power feat to his name, and that is what weakens him drastically compared to the rest of the 7 deadly sins in just pure raw power. So he's weaker than all of them physically. However, the only other aspect you can make up for is saying, well, he could hit them with his hacks. But the main issue is by end of series, all of Gother's hacks basically need to be set up into being comboed into. Gother doesn't start landing shots randomly anymore. He used to when he was relative to everyone else in speed, but every other time by end of series, he's constantly either fighting a really large target that's really hard to miss, such as the Endura, and or he's being set up for, as in the case with Bond versus the Demon King Meliodas and the 7 deadly sins versus the Demon King. Gother doesn't tag them himself anymore. He always needs support, and the main issue with that is every other person above him can counteract his hacks, either by once again being too fast. This applying to characters like Bond, King, Eskenor, Meliodas, all of who are able to fight the Prime Demon King head to head. Meanwhile, Gother doesn't do any of that. And one could even argue that Diane and Merlin are faster than him, but even if you don't want to agree with that, considering they were also not fighting at first, even though Merlin was able to tag the Prime Demon King before he could react as long as he was fainted out, and Diane was able to overwhelm the Demon King with sheer rocks without him being able to dodge or avoid, they have defenses against it. The perfect cube and or any of Diane's earth constructs could easily block out all of Gother's ranged invasions, and if he tries to get close to either of them, one could teleport away in Merlin's case, or the other is going to just consistently avoid him by using Drill's Dance, a technique that has worked against Gother in the past before. So I don't really see how Gother can take anything. He just lacks the feats both in power and speed to prove that he is superior to any of his fellow Sins. However, let's move on to number 6. Mother Creation Gideon Diane falls at number 6. Now, this was the most difficult one to discern over her number 5 contender, and this was due to the fact that we have a really good feat for a Mother Creation Gideon Diane. She was able to overwhelm the Demon King and move him around, get him to groan and make sounds of pain, and then put him on an entirely different platform that disconnected him from the Magic Lake, and of course she was able to fight against the Demon King with the rest of her fellow Sins backing her up, just as the same case with Gother. Now, why does she fall beneath everyone else? This is due to the fact that she leaves no visible damage on the Demon King. Yes, he makes sounds of discomfort and discontent, however, he doesn't have any visible marks on him, unlike every other person above Diane in this case, who did leave marks on the Demon King, who do have actual moments of purely damaging him, pure visible damage. And we need that pure physical damage to give her the points in terms of power. However, since she lacks that, and every single other Sin has that against the Demon King, then that doesn't do good for her power-wise. The only reason she ranks above Gother in this aspect is because, one, she was able to overwhelm the Demon King momentarily, even if she was not able to damage him, and on top of this, she was able to damage the Endura in base form without using any hacks. She simply used her Ground Gladius, which is pure power. However, every other Sin was able to do that, or in the Meliodas' case was fighting the Demon King, which is stronger than the Endura, so everyone else has better feats than Diane in this case, even Mother Creation Diane, since by the time that she starts doing damage to the Demon King consistently, it's when she's fighting alongside all the other Sins, and the damage sort of becomes null and void. It's all spread out everywhere, so we're not sure where it's going and who's doing the most damage. So Diane, in terms of power, falls pretty darn low. Still great for a character of her series, still extremely powerful, but in terms of her 7 Deadly Sin counterparts, she is rather lacking in terms of the pure power department. For speed and technique, while she's very, very good at what she does, once again she runs into the Gother problem, where every single person above her completely negates all of her magical abilities and all of her different types of techniques. For Merlin, how does she neg Diane? Well, she negs Diane in the sense that Perfect Cube just absolutely bullies Diane. On top of this, in terms of power, instead of just negating techniques, Merlin actually leaves visible damage on the Demon King. Sure, it comes from a feint, but that's still more damage than Diane did after she was allowed to reach her peak amount of power with Mother Creation, and that's just the pure power gap coming in. Then, of course, when you go to someone like Meliodas, he's fighting the Demon King on his own in Demon Mark, not to talk of Assault Mode, not to talk of even his true magic form. So in terms of sheer power, he just outdoes Diane drastically. And then, same thing with someone like Eskenor, who's able to just completely bully Diane in terms of raw power. He's able to fight the Demon King head to head with no hesitation at all. He just pulls up even before the one and managed to do more damage than Diane ever did, even with Mother Creation at her peak state. Once again, same thing applies to someone like King, who is extremely powerful and also does damage to the Demon King without any prerequisites. He just does it. He's able to do that on his own with no support and leaves visible damage on the Demon King. The same case applies to Bond, who's able to damage the Prime Demon King once again. Meanwhile, Diane leaves no visible damage. That's the main issue here. Diane just lacks the raw power, and in terms of speed, everyone outspeeds her pretty solidly. The only person I could see someone logistically arguing speed for in this case is someone like Merlin, who may be relative to Diane, but then the main issue falls down to the gap in power and the gap in abilities. Merlin hard negs Diane since Diane doesn't have the raw power to shatter something like the Perfect Cube, and at any moment, Merlin can absolutely just shut down Diane's magic with Absolute Cancel, which Diane may be able to dodge once or twice, but I think due to their relativity and speed, but Merlin's better abilities and her better showing in terms of raw power, I am going to have to give it to Merlin, and every other Sin scales above accordingly since each one of them was able to fight the Prime Demon King at some point in some state. So there is that. Diane falls around number 6 in terms of her 7 deadly sins. However, let's move on to number 5. Merlin is extremely powerful and extremely diverse in terms of her magical abilities, but what she lacks is the power and the speed once again. Merlin was not fighting against the Prime Demon King until her time was up and she was ready. When everyone else was prepared to fight the Prime Demon King, that's when Merlin leaped into battle. However, for the most part, she hid in the perfect cube while King, Ban, and Eskenor were out there putting in the work against the Prime Demon King. And due to her only attack against him and her only damage against him coming from a feint, which, while good for her power-wise, isn't very good for her in terms of consistency and her ability to constantly fight the Prime Demon King, then it leans towards every other sin scaling above her. Take a look at Meliodas. Meliodas is able to fight the Demon King one-on-one, no feints, dealing damage, even in states like Demon Mark, not to talk of Assault Mode or the True Magic state. Look at Eskenor. Someone like Eskenor was able to damage the Prime Demon King head-to-head, even in his final shine state, rather than him entering the 1 or the 1 ultimate. So even in a weaker form, Eskenor does way better than Merlin does against the Prime Demon King, who is forced to hide and cower while the other three hold off the Demon King while they wait for Meliodas and Gother to get back. Then Ban, once again, fighting the Prime Demon King with no shields, no protection, just going in straight up, not needing feints, doing damage, constantly attacking. There's that. And then, of course, you have King, who does the exact same thing as Eskenor and Ban, and Meliodas. So Merlin really is just lacking in terms of consistent power. While she is able to damage the Prime Demon King, and that's good for her, she did it once through a fake out, and then pretty much never again. So there's that. I think she just lacks the power to consistently damage her fellow sins that are above her. So Merlin, while extremely powerful, does fall below the rest of her 7 deadly sins. Now, the thing is, I can see people trying to argue for Merlin's hacks, such as Perfect Cube, Time Stop, stuff like that. However, Time Stop takes way too much time to be used viably in a fight without support, just like a lot of Gother's abilities by the end of series. And Perfect Cube is actually shown to be shatterable. Even the Demon King Meliodas was able to shatter the Perfect Cube pretty casually, in fact. So all these people who are able to fight against the Prime Demon King, who is stronger than the Demon King Meliodas, would reasonably be able to do the exact same thing of breaking the Perfect Cube. We never see Merlin's Perfect Cube in the final fight with the Demon King go up against the Demon King himself. The main reason that cube wall was up was to protect Elizabeth from the nature elements that could have possibly killed her. So that means a lot of these characters will be able to bust right through her defenses without much worry, and due to their speed advantage, would be able to take her out before she's able to do anything too dangerous. That's the main issue for Merlin. She lacks both power and speed due to her lack of consistency in the fight with the Prime Demon King. Of course, she does damage against them towards the end of the fight with everyone else, but like I said with Gother and Diane, just because she does all that little damage towards the end, it does not mean that she suddenly scales equal to the rest of the 7 deadly sins, because she was doing that with all of their help. We don't know what damage she did, we don't know how relative she was, none of that. It was just all a group attack, so it blurs drastically. Now, that's enough about Merlin. Let's move on to number 4. The King of the Fairies Harlequin comes in at number 4 for a couple reasons. He is stronger than characters like Diane, Gother, and Merlin because once again he's able to consistently damage, take hits from, and fight against the Prime Demon King, while none of the characters beneath him have shown that. However, at the same time, he does lack in power and speed in comparison to his contemporaries that are above him in terms of True Magic form Meliodas, Post-Purgatory Corchu's Ban, and the one ultimate Eskenor. Now, why is this? This is due to the fact that while characters like Ban, King, and Eskenor are shown to fight pretty evenly with the Demon King, exchanging blows and taking damage from him, seemingly at around the same pace, characters like Ban have the speed advantage due to the fact that Ban is actually shown to be faster. In the 7 Deadly Sins fight against the Endura, Ban manages to completely speed blitz past King and save him a couple times in that fight because King is just a bit too slow. In the final fight with the Demon King, it is Ban who is able to pull off a lot of saving maneuvers for the other sins in comparison to King, who while is doing damage and is keeping up, just simply isn't as fast as them. And of course, the one ultimate Eskenor is able to completely overpower and outspeed the Prime Demon King, and that's just a massive speed gap that King was not able to overcome, and True Magic form Meliodas should scale at least relative to them, considering a Demon Mark Meliodas was able to keep pace with the Demon King, and True Magic form is 2 entire stages higher than that, and 2 stages higher than that. It's a realm that King can't even compare to. He's extremely powerful, but in terms of this list specifically, he's not powerful enough to scrape into the top 3. However, speaking of the top 3, let's move right on into it. Post-Purgatory, Kurchu's Ban is extremely powerful. He scales solidly above the rest of the sins beneath him due to his feats of speed and his feats of power against the Prime Demon King and the Endura, which does very good for him. However, he does not compare to the one ultimate Eskenor and true magic Meliodas, two beings who surpass him in both power and speed. The speed argument comes in for the fact that the one ultimate Eskenor was no longer relative to Ban and also pulling the same maneuvers that Ban was doing, but he was actually overpowering and pummeling the Demon King before the Demon King could react, which is much faster than what Ban has shown. And the same case with power. Ban was able to damage the Prime Demon King, but he wasn't bullying him like the one ultimate Eskenor was. That's the major difference. And the same thing with a true magic Meliodas. Once again, a Demon Mark Meliodas is able to show up and just relatively tie with the Demon King alone. Meanwhile, it takes Ban the help of Eskenor and King to do serious damage against the Demon King. So a stage of Meliodas that is 2 stages higher than Demon Mark is likely going to do way better against someone like Ban. And that is once again the main issue. Simply the power and speed is just too much of a gap for someone like Ban to overcome. Even if he tries to use any of his hacks abilities, it's unlikely that he's going to be able to get them off, considering the raw gap in power and speed between him and Eskenor and Meliodas. The gap is simply too wide for Ban to cross. However, he still does make the top 3 very solidly. He scales above everyone else thanks to his good power and speed feats, but he just can't scrape into that top because of those 2 feats done by the beings above him. It's just too big of a gap for Ban to reasonably cross, even with Kurchu's, which is crazy to say, but that's how much more powerful Eskenor and Meliodas are. But this is a really short segment. Let's move on to number 2. The one ultimate Eskenor is insanely powerful. He is able to bully the Prime Demon King on his own, which is a testament that no other sin except for one could likely do. This includes Ban, this includes King, this includes Diane, this includes Gother, this includes Merlin, likely includes all of them combined together, because that's just how powerful Eskenor is. He's amazingly strong. However, he still does not reach number 1. But why is that? While Eskenor is extremely powerful, he was not able to overcome the Demon King's final attack on his own. Death Zero is not something that Eskenor could break through. He was being held back by it. Meanwhile, the person who stands above Eskenor was in base and was completely able to eat the attack. He was in the same struggling situation as Eskenor, but he was once again nowhere near his full power. And that's the main issue. While Eskenor does have the fantastic feat of completely overwhelming the Prime Demon King, he was not able to annihilate the Prime Demon King. He was not able to completely destroy him. He was also being held back. Meanwhile, the person who stands above him was not. However, once again, thanks to his one feat of just completely overwhelming the Prime Demon King, Eskenor easily scales above the rest of the 7 deadly sins. The only person he can't surpass is Meliodas, the captain, and that's just because Meliodas has one feat that's way better than that in his strongest state. However, Eskenor, thanks to his one feat, does reach number 2 of the 7 deadly sins extremely solidly, but let's talk about number 1. True magic form Meliodas scales above the rest of the 7 deadly sins rather easily, and here's the biggest reason why. While every other sin was fighting against the Prime Demon King in one way, shape, or form in their strongest state, whether that be the one ultimate Eskenor, whether that be Full Wings King, whether that be Mother Creation Diane, whether that be any of them, Meliodas never used his true power. In fact, he was suppressing himself the entire time throughout the fight in order to not destroy the world and to not kill Zeldris. So we never even actually see Meliodas' true power in legitimate action until his very last and main feat. Meliodas simply enters his true magic state, and Zeldris, who was just the Demon King and knows his father's power very well, clearly states, "That form, that magic, I don't believe it. It's on par with father's. No, it's well beyond it. Don't tell me this is a manifestation of your own power." And yes, Meliodas is that strong that he is well beyond the confines of the Demon King's power. And not only that, the thing that makes this feat of him destroying the commandments and the Demon King both at the same time, as he states, "I'll throw all my power at them to wipe out the Demon Lord." The amazing thing about this is that a true magic form Meliodas wielding Lost Vein was able to do more than all of the 7 deadly sins, raw power, of course minus Gother, combined. And that's just the base state of the attack. Remember, this attack included power from the one ultimate Eskenor, post-Purgatory bond with Kuruchus, full Wings King, Mother Creation Diane, post-Infinity Merlin, and post-Purgatory Meliodas in assault mode. And regardless of that, that final attack that failed to destroy the Demon King wasn't just that base attack that was all of their powers combined. If you go with just the full counters that were stated on panel, and not the ones that you have to count up physically by the amount of times the attack was reflected, that power that was all the 7 deadly sins minus Gother combined was multiplied 16 times thanks to 4 stated full counters. And unless my counting is wrong, which it entirely can be, don't be afraid to correct me in the comment section down below, around 10 times in actuality by the end of it if you count up all the individual lines shown by the full counters on screen, meaning that base power of all the 7 deadly sins power combined was multiplied by around 1024 times. All of that failed to destroy the Demon King. However, True Magic Meliodas instantly annihilated the Demon King, and that was when he was sacrificing his power. According to Zeldas himself, Meliodas, without sacrificing his power, was literally way stronger than the Demon King. He was well beyond their father's power, which does make sense considering what was implied before by Meliodas' true magic and how dangerous it was. But what does that mean? It means that Meliodas is either 16 times stronger than the combined power of not only himself in assault mode, but the rest of the 7 deadly sins, but he could possibly be 1024 times greater than the rest of the 7 deadly sins. And that's in his true magic form with Lost Vein. So yes, he drastically outpowers the rest of the sins, and there you go. There is your top 7, based on all their feats within the series. That is the 7 deadly sins ranked from weakest to strongest. To run through the list one more time, very quickly, the weakest sin is Gother at number 7, then Diane at number 6, then Merlin at number 5, then King at number 4, then Bon at number 3, then Eskenor at number 2, and Meliodas at number 1 as the strongest sin. I can definitely see people having differences and disagreements with this list. I can see people arguing Merlin versus Diane. I can see people arguing King versus Bon. I can definitely see people arguing Eskenor versus Meliodas. However, I do think it is a very solid list going off what is in the series itself. While we could talk about hypotheticals, we can go endlessly with hypotheticals. There's way more we could do when talking about that. But regardless of that, I want to know what you guys think. Do you agree with this list? Do you disagree with this list? Is there anything you would change on the list? Do you think there are any feats I missed for certain characters? Please tell me in the comment section down below. I 100% can be wrong, but this is what I was able to compile based on all the information the series has given me and through constantly rereading the end of the series and looking for the feats for every single respective character. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below, so please do not be afraid to drop them down there. This was super fun to make, and I hope it was worth the wait. Now, regardless of that, thank you guys so much for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is That Guy with a Pencil, writing off.